Dianna Campbell. I am the Chief Strategist and CEO of DiCam Strategic Solutions. This is the second webinar of a series that we're kicking off. The last one was last week, which was the 3 yeses of $1 million deals. We had about 40 people registered for that one because everybody's trying to figure out the money because the landscape of philanthropy has changed so much. So but this one really focuses on why philanthropy is failing, to miss the mark, and to provide 5 key steps to leverage your investment. So I'm hoping over the next 40 minutes that I'll give you a nugget or two of how you can grow with this very changing landscape of philanthropy. Happy to see some old faces and folks that I haven't spoken to in a minute, and some new ones that I'm currently working with or trying to strategize with how to go deeper. So I'll go ahead and I'll be recording this for your listening pleasure and for you to share within your industry. Several folks need to understand the changing landscapes in philanthropy and how to make sure that we are growing deeper within our partnerships. So the whole purpose is to really just share content, lift all boats, and because the mindset shift that needs to happen with this new version of philanthropy and really turning philanthropy upside down is really why I'm here. So if you do have questions along the way, please don't hesitate to put those in the chat. I'll go ahead and get to those at the end of the session. And for those that you don't know, usually I have my EA Christina on the line, but she's moving her sister into her dormitory today. So she's doing that. And I'm like, you know what? I can do this. I can do this by myself. So anyway, if you have any questions, and I'll put those in the chat and I will get to those later. So I want to first thank our sponsor. You always have to thank your sponsor. So Pinnacle Talent Acquisition sponsored this webinar series. Again, this is the second one. The first one focused more on nonprofits. And this one is focusing on giving institutions and funders, but also has implications for nonprofits. So I'll be toggling between the 2 areas as I give the content and the data. So, but Pinnacle Talent Acquisition, if you don't mind muting yourself, that would be great. So Pinnacle Talent Acquisition is an award-winning firm. The Dawn Taylor, who's the CEO, was literally featured on CEO Magazine as a cover girl. She's on Forbes, HR, policy team, and very much a award-winning organization. They have staffing, HR practices, DEI services, and as organizations are looking to build culture and have more of an inclusive environment, they created an HR audit process to help organizations think through how they can be more diverse, how they could be more inclusive within their culture. So as you know, that with the right team and the right leadership, fund development and partnerships are just simply easier. So thank you to Pinnacle Talent Acquisition. A little bit about me and DiCam. DiCam Strategic Solutions' core purpose is really to develop nonprofit and funder partnerships for sustained social impact, whether it's environment, people, or systems. I work with nonprofits on fund development strategies, mindset coaching, trainings, and plan development, and with funders on partnership development, grantee training, and ideation to go deeper with their nonprofits. Lately, I've also been bringing a different portfolio pool to some of my funding partners of organizations that they should be considering. A little bit about me. I have over 25 years of experience in this area, leading as a chief development officer for some of the nation's largest foundations and philanthropic organizations. I've personally secured over 130 million and have managed teams to secure close to $500 million. In this function, I have really served as that hub, that glue, making sure I'm linking the nation's largest philanthropic organizations and Fortune 500, mostly Fortune 100 companies, with some very complex strategic alliances, whether we're doing social enterprises, white labels, profit sharing, to simple event sponsorships, grants, government grants, on and on. So I've managed or personally been involved in many aspects of fund development, and I kind of like it a lot. I would be remiss if I didn't give homage to my industry. Last week on the 17th was National Nonprofit Day, yay. However, this month is Black Philanthropy Month. And yes, there is such a thing. It started about, it's actually celebrated globally in about 30 countries around the world. And it started about 10 years ago in 2011 to provide a galvanizing time to give Black and give back, recognizing donors in the variety of ways that they've given, not just the large donors, but also the volume of small gifts and collective giving Black families, churches, and civic organizations have provided to the broad spectrum and broad impact. I was reading an article recently as I'm, negotiating with all the different kind of partnerships and having them re-strategize differently about target audiences. But according to the African American Psychology 4th edition in 2019, Black households tend to give more of their discretionary income, as much as 25% more, to charitable causes than any other segment in society. Let that sit in. So happy Black Philanthropy Month. And I hope you look at this as an opportunity to support Black businesses, scholarships, churches, nonprofits, and those that help and serve. Additionally, as I sit and always retool, I was in a webinar about 2 weeks ago with UC Berkeley Extension, and they shared this really interesting fact that I've been, waving my flag all week long about it. And out of the $12 billion that was given between June 2020 and January 2021, 8.2 billion focused on balancing the equity gap with funding focused on underserved and racial equity in education. Mind-blowing. And almost 90% of foundations are making new efforts to support organizations serving communities and those particularly affected from the economic and health consequences of COVID caused by systemic racism, primarily to Black, Latino, and low-income communities. So the time and the tide have shifted. The time has said we really need to rebalance some things that we just haven't really been focusing on. So I'm going to pause there and just do a quick poll to see who's on the line. And I'll go ahead and start this poll. I just need to know, you can see the poll, just click on your areas, whether you're a nonprofit leader, C-suite, the program marketing team, you're on the funder grantee leadership C-suite side, or the program team, or you're just interested in philanthropic trends. Because as I mentioned, this is a session that I've taught on both sides of the coin. I've taught it to nonprofits of how to go deeper with their for-profit partners. And I've taught it to for-profits of how to make sure that they're getting the most on their return on investment to their nonprofit partners. Okay, great. We have a good balance of folks. And alrighty, in the poll. Thank you for that. So we have C-suite, we have a program team, and we have someone who's simply just interested. Awesome. Okay, and I will keep it moving. Okay. So I'm really happy to see the different folks in the different areas, because as you know, it really takes a concerted effort from a whole organization. And what I found is that most partnerships are 2 people on this side and 2 people on that side. And then you want to know why you're not getting the biggest bang for your buck. It really involves every street, avenue, circle, intersectionality of 2 organizations in order to really have the impact that you want. And as we all saw since January 2020, this version of philanthropy is unprecedented. But I can personally say that I am humbled and proud, very proud, to be a part of this time in history where nonprofits and funding entities are truly focused on bridging the equity gap. Because as I've said on almost every call, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, in donor meetings, partnership meetings, the job of philanthropy is to bridge equity. That is the job. So we're off to a great start.
Hey, Di, since such a small group, can I chime in with a question on that one slide?
Yes.
What was the source of information on those statistics? That's super interesting.
Sure, and I can share that with you. The one that's 12.5, I mean the 12 billion, that was the UC Berkeley extension webinar that was done about 2 weeks ago. And then the other one, I have it in my file of where I found that stat, and I can send that to you. Matter of fact, I actually have the recording from the UC Berkeley one that I can share with you, Sarah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And yes, since it is a small group, if you do have questions, just go ahead and we'll answer those in real time. So the stats, the statistics, the reach, the impact, the new focus is really which led me to the why of this session. You know, in my work with local and national nonprofits, being an advisor, being on boards, I have seen firsthand the struggles and also the shock of how many nonprofits went out of business during COVID and are still going out of business. And the most tragic part of all of it is that the ones that are going or went out of business are the local, what I call impact gap fillers, the ones that we actually need to address the key population needs and the key disparity needs that we are having as a country. So nonprofits are struggling. They're really just struggling to remain relevant as the landscape and expectations of funders have shifted. But with all of this comes a partnership mindset shift. We are part of a time when partnerships don't necessarily want a simple product, a program. Funders are looking for partnerships that are making systemic impact. Conversely, nonprofits are wanting more trust and less transactional relationships. Maybe looking a bit at the McKinsey model where you're giving funds to organizations that are just simply making great impact without a lot of strings. Now, we have to see what that looks like in the coming years, but that less transactional relationship is really the key here. So why philanthropy is failing is because the model of philanthropy is based on transactions versus partnership building. Now, obviously, there are some amazing, very savvy organizations in the world and partnerships that are maybe like 10 to 15% of nonprofits are working with some really savvy organizations and really banging it out. Those are the ones that you see on TV. So that leaves about 80 to 90% of other organizations, and that's who I'm talking to on this. So hopefully you'll get a tool or two to help you and your organization have that paradigm mindset shift to deepen partnerships that are rooted in impact and sustainability versus transactional philanthropy. So this webinar explores why your investment fails to realize the return you seek in 5 key steps that you could be doing with your nonprofit partner that are cost neutral. Yep, I said it, cost neutral. Won't cost anything. So a bit of the what, which we all are pretty much well familiar with, and then the next. So what is the challenge? You know, as funders, 2020 and 2021 continue to be some turbulent times. One which illuminated numerous inequities and that inhibit our ability to achieve better health and financial security through better philanthropy. These disparities are directly related to our healthcare systems, financial systems, housing, public policy, and all the social and structural factors that drive outcomes. However, the next, these challenges highlighted over the last year also provide an opportunity to reimagine and restructure the way we design and implement efforts to improve outcomes for people, systems, and the environment. And philanthropic institutions are well positioned to help lead the way. It is truly a new day, and it is truly a new way. And I really hope this continues. But this also puts nonprofits in a different place, and it makes them have to think differently because the landscape is just so unusual, yet in a very positive way. So as I mentioned, the current state of America has shed light on some old and is really pushing philanthropy in a very new way and having people and systems think differently. You have public-private partnerships kicking off, bringing in government and corporations and foundations, philanthropists, community-based organizations all coming together for this massive systems change our country requires. The positive side is that COVID reshaped philanthropy. Funders, during COVID, I heard from countless funders asking grantees for different outcomes and begin even questioning their investment. Are they getting the best return on their investment? Is there more that they could be doing for their organization? They actually granted more leeway on reporting and expanding grant terms, yay. But funders also at the same time begin to ask for more alignment, more transparency, more strategic thinking. So yes, as nonprofits were scrambling, funders are like, well, give me more. A bit schizophrenic there. And finally, I was really excited that, diversity, equity, and inclusion were not just things on a paper that they said, yes, we're about, but really something that they were including in their grant making. But this has led to an introspective grant maker, really focusing on inclusive grant making practices. There's a movement of taking, having a man and a woman mirror moment of focusing on, am I personally responsible? What are my own biases that I need to be checking? I've posted online many times to, check your bias, using the Harvard University personal bias platform. And I've taken it several times just to understand my blind spots and encourage C-suite leaders and everyone to do that. Organizations are also looking at the diversity of staff. Who's making those decisions? Who is actually saying that we should fund these organizations? Are they diverse? Do they represent the people in which you are actually targeting? You can't say that, yes, we stand for this, but yet you look around and your board is completely different. Your staff is completely different. We've seen, more inclusive partnership guidelines. For instance, maybe your guidelines are not equitable because it says that you have to have 3 FTEs in order to get a grant from us. Maybe they could have 1 and still have the same impact. So I've been doing some partnership audits with my partners to come up with some of these things and help them through this process. I've also seen a lot of equitability in guidelines that put more emphasis on infrastructure and staff costs. The organizations that are there to reach the least of these don't have a lot of staff. They need computers, they need systems, but yet most granting organizations don't allow for that. Why? Again, equitability in philanthropy. And lastly, who are those unlikely partners that you should be thinking about? Those smaller nonprofits that didn't necessarily qualify before, but could qualify under your new eyes. So these are just a few of the things that have come out that how COVID has reshaped philanthropy in a positive way, which goes to the paradigm mindset shift. So why philanthropy is failing is that funders are afraid to go deep, yet that's what they want. Grantors or funders have all the skills internally that a nonprofit needs to make them savvier, yet they don't share. Funders keep asking for more, and nonprofits are simply just jumping through hoops to meet your deliverables because if they don't, you won't renew, equals the challenge. What you're asking for is just not intuitive for some of your partners, yet you are holding the how. You're holding how they could go deeper. You're holding how they could be savvier. And if you loosen up some of the deliverables to make it more amicable and through partnerships, it would have a whole different mindset shift on how you actually partner with organizations. So we're going to go ahead and jump in. The 5 tactics on this slide were not created in a vacuum. This formula literally was created with years of trial and error. And these are only 5. I have about 15 that I do an interchange with organizations based on what they need. It was created with trial and error and research and reading and listening to clients, listening to them give me ratings. I ask clients, so how am I doing? How's our organization doing? How do we compare to some of your other organizations? I see you're giving them $500,000, but you're only giving us 2. I see you're giving them 5 million and you're only giving us 1 million. What's the difference? What are you getting out of that relationship that we're not providing? But on the other side, I've listened to the frustrations of the program teams and the marketing teams and the inflexibility of expectations. If it's not a part of the deliverables, we can't do it because we don't have mindset or talent internally or time in order to allocate towards the new things our partners and funders are asking. So taking all of these things over years of going back and forth and being that hub in the middle is how I've come up with just 5 key ones that I want to share, that I've just pulled out what I find to be, if you just choose one, you're actually making a change. So let's go into some of the ones that I have pulled out for you today. And again, if you have any questions, put those in the chat, or you can just, hand raise, come off mute since it's a smaller group today. Thought leadership opportunities on topics with key executives. Note, this is not a press release. This is not a press release. This is not you all announcing and that you're just doing a photo opportunity. Not at all. This is a platform of what you're known for in the marketplace, working together. Together, we're going to target 1 million youth. Together, we're going to save 100 tons of waste, or we're going to preserve some wetlands. We are aligned to do. So that's the first part. But the second part of where the meat is, where the thought leadership part is now you're blogging together. You're attending conferences and you're on panels together. You're doing webinars together. You're co-writing white papers and supporting each other's research. You're announcing research findings. You're announcing policy matters. Again, and I might say this 5 more times during this part of it. It's not a press release. One of my old colleagues a couple of years ago said to me, "Oh, Dianna, if we have to do one more press release that nobody reads," and I'm like, "Girl, I know. Nobody reads those announcement press releases. They're a waste of time. What are you going to do? What are you going to stand for? What change are you putting a stake in the ground in the marketplace?" Because what this does, it creates a drumbeat. It creates a drumbeat that these 2 entities in the marketplace are doing something big. And what that does, it attracts partners. It attracts funders that are aligned and attracted to what you're trying to do in the marketplace. So thought leadership opportunities, again, cost neutral. It's just about 2 people deciding what they're going to do together. And this is when you can lean on the budgets of your funding entities for them to say, yes, we and can. 2, capitalizing on brand alignment with stories of impact throughout the year. Again, this is not the press release. It's not to say, hey, we're going to do something. This is where you actually have the stories of making it up. Miss Johnson in Dinwiddie County, Virginia, and how she got SNAP benefits for the first time at 72. But that's not the story. The story is how she got it. The story is she went to a community center or a senior center, and someone that looked like her with a tablet said, "Hey, do you have SNAP benefits?" Ms. Johnson's like, "I don't want my $10 and $12. I need more than that." She ended up getting $80 worth of SNAP benefits. And then following up, it was like, okay, now that you have that, what other benefits do you qualify for? For low income subsidy and heating and rent and repairs in your house. That's the story. That's what you talk about. That's how you get and target 1 million this, or we're going to change the lives of XYZ. And that becomes a part of your thought leadership platform. So again, it's not just, hey, we're going to do, but pulling those stories from those program teams of what you can say in your platform throughout the year. 3, one of my personal favorites, encourage your nonprofit partner to develop a CEO roundtable to hear their strategic direction. This is so multi-tiered as far as impact. First, of course, you want to invite your current funders and partners to hear the vision of the organization and the direction. You know, I actually worked with an organization called the Org Group, who I'm a huge fan of. And I had them evaluate 20 of my top partners. My partners might not always speak the truth, but I would hope that they would. So evaluate me, evaluate our organization, evaluate the program outcomes and what else that we needed to know. And the biggest thing that came out of it, minus of course they thought it was amazing, yay. The biggest thing that came out of it was that the partners knew their verticals very well, very well. But when asked about other areas of the organization, they're like, yeah, we've heard something, but we know this. So if you have an opportunity for your CEO to talk about your strategic direction, it invites your partners and prospects and clients to come in and learn about everything, not just their vertical. So, and when you learn about other things, you actually expand funding opportunities across that platform. You hear that United Healthcare is a big partner on, an in-school opportunity for underserved kids in rural America. You hear Anthem is doing this, or Nationwide is doing this. So you hear who those anchor partners are. And then it also attracts a little bit of competition from funding entities of like, why am I not in that game? Why are we not doing something like that? I find these to be really, really insightful. Not only that you invite C-level of other organizations, and it's a high level invite. I've actually done these remotely during COVID, which is really cool. There's a whole strategy around that, which, make it into like a wine and cheese thing, but I digress. You invite them to this like listen only, just for you kind of opportunity. And all of a sudden there's churning wheels. It's not just about the financial education that they're doing. Now they're hearing about health and wellness. And I'm like, you know what? We have a new strategy in our organization and we're going to be targeting such and such. So that really expands them to think through what they could be doing differently for you and with you. But this also could lead to work group participation, where if you have a theory of change that you're just getting off the ground and that there are some thought leaders on that call, they could also join a work group. Or if you're thinking about an advisory board or you have an advisory board, this could also be a platform to find advisory board members or strengthen your advisory board, or just simply deepening their knowledge in relationship with the organization. Number 4. On these thought leadership opportunities and then capitalizing on stories and sharing your strategic plan, you're basically giving opportunities for them to invest differently and to capitalize on larger impact. This is truly that outcome of what happens of the CEO roundtable. So you have all of these things that of course build into galvanizing towards a bigger strategic outcome with your partners. They're now thinking differently. They're now thinking about you, not just in that vertical, but what more that they could do together. So when you have that, we're going to do 1 million by this, and we're going to solve 100 tons of X. This makes them connect to everything that you're doing as an organization. So really giving them different opportunities to invest, it works every time, because the competition of funders kicks in somehow right here, where they're like, why am I not, and why are they doing? But my last one that I want to share with you, which is one of my personal favorites that I've been pushing for years, is push for innovation with a percentage of the grant set aside to explore possibilities. Think about it. If you're a corporation, you move at the speed of business. If you're a funding entity, you follow research and trends for impact investment. But you're moving, things are moving. Every 4 months to 6 months, there's change, there's opportunity, there's things. Yet you don't expect the same from your nonprofit partner. You have that, every 12 to 24 months, that's what they're supposed to do. And they kind of stay in that realm. Make sure you meet the deliverables, versus giving them an opportunity to look and innovate during that time. So this is part of a paradigm mindset shift that I've been really pushing organizations, funding entities to think through as they are reimagining their philanthropic portfolio and how they've been given. So that simply setting aside 10 to 20% of a funding grant for exploration and innovation is huge. So let's take the example of Mrs. Johnson in Dinwiddie County, Virginia. So we saw in this one county, you know, the SNAP enrollment rates go through the roof. Like, oh my goodness, what are they doing? And how can we capitalize this in other counties that are reaching underserved and at-risk populations? What innovation that they had in real time could be shared if they had some funds to go with it? So now they're looking at training older adults to enroll other older adults into programs. They also might need a tablet partner because, you know, there was only 3 tablets that were shared around at this one community center. But they also saw that there was issues with transportation of even getting people to the community center so they could sign up. All kind of aha moments that were activated in this one grant that they didn't have any more money and we couldn't give them any more to explore what innovation looks like. Yet that could have been something that is shared throughout all and many underserved markets. So pushing for innovation and setting aside money to explore innovation and exploration is a game changer in the marketplace. I would say this is McKinsey light as far as what you could do to help nonprofits build trust and build their coffers. So all of these are a continuum, but if you just do one, you are positioned better than you were before. These, as I said, are just 5 of many that I've seen work over the years and outcomes of partner audits that I have been doing with my partners over the years. So becoming partners and leveraging your investment. It really is time to do partner audits and teach your nonprofits and even your for-profit partners how to maximize a partnership around what going deeper is and the new metrics of impact. Conversely, I've been a part of, and I've seen a lot of organizations, you know, and call for internal audits of for-profit and funding entities and the equitability in philanthropy. As I said before, and I will say it again, closing the equity gap is philanthropy. Now I know all of this sounds very easy. Just send this to your internal program partnership team, as well as your nonprofits, your community-based organization partners. But in my 25 plus years of analyzing local and national nonprofits and community-based organizations, while also working with the nation's largest corporations and foundations, I've seen firsthand the friction of the language and the expectations, the outcomes and inflexibilities. Yet I've also seen firsthand the huge opportunities that these can activate, because what you're doing is you're tentacling down. You're putting multiple tentacles within an organization and back and forth. You're not just creating a system where you didn't meet your deliverables and now we're not funding you. It's, hey, we knew along the way because we pivoted. We knew along the way because we saw something that we wanted to focus on differently. The trick is to stop treating nonprofits as clients and vendors and grantees, but to start treating them as partners. With partnerships, there's that communication and collaboration and exploration, and the more you seek. I love it when clients say, hey, we just want more. And I'm like, well, what does that look like? Well, we want more strategy. Okay, what does that look like? So I'm like, all right, let me dissect this more that you all keep asking for and then put together, here, does this look like more? And that's where some of those tactics have come from. You know, you want, you know, and you hear, everybody wants their philanthropic dollars leveraged. When you do partnership strengthening tactics, the nonprofit partner will not need to go get another grant and constantly be on that hamster wheel, more, which also inhibits partnership growth. But your expanded exposure will actually attract more partners making their work of seeking grants much easier. So it is a true win-win for all. They'll attract local impact partners and regional partners who are trying to make sure that you're preserving the wetlands, or you're making sure water is saved or purified, or schools are built. But you're also attracting donors who are like, yeah, we want to be a part of that movement too. All right. So we have left about 10 minutes for us to ask questions, but I really want to make sure that in closing that, these are just a handful of tools, I've developed over the years of listening to partners and working with nonprofits. What was that? Okay. I got into this field because I saw the challenges, but I also know how to make it easier. Serving as that glue in between organizations for so long, my entire career, I've been able to see how simple it is, but I've also been able to see how challenging it has become. So please share this with your partners, your management team, share this with your nonprofit partners. And also, we are here, myself, my team at DiCam Strategic Solutions, to help you strengthen your relationships with your funding partners and your grantees. I offer a 45-minute assessment to explore partnership audit ideas and grantee trainings. As I said, I've audited on both sides of the coin. All right, who are your funders? Which ones can you go deeper with? Who are your grantees? Which ones do you really want to grow? And let's look at your guidelines of giving to see how equitable they are, so to make sure that you actually have a strong funding pool. So as I said, I'll pause here for questions. Again, this is being recorded for your sharing pleasure. And please reach out to me and let me know if I can help and assist. I'll definitely, and you can come off mute in a minute, but I just want to give a special thanks again to Don Taylor, Pinnacle Talent Acquisition, for sponsoring this webinar and upcoming webinar series. Other ones will have some of my partners on the line as we co-share opportunities and solutions. And again, please share these 5 proven relationship building tips with your staff, as we all have a shared vision of growing impact. Thank you. Thank you. And are there any questions? You can come off mute if you have any.
Maybe a comment. Can you hear me, Diana?
Oh, hey, Gary, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. 2 things. One, I think people need to understand that many times in the complexities of an organization, and as you know, McKinsey did studies that found out that 40% of the productivity of any nonprofit organization is lost by infighting among the staff and the board and all of that. Mm-hmm. And so many times an organization or a person like yourself can move the ball in those organizations to change the way they're perceptive and how they approach things, rather than the staff itself can do it. They just pushing against a hard wall. Mm-hmm. But you come in from a fresh perspective and are able to plant seeds that will in fact move the organization to the places with their partners that make them much more productive, much more effective at the community level. That's one thing. Second thing, I'm very involved in an organization right now, and one of the things we've hit on, and I just would throw this out because it ties in with what you're talking about, and we've developed what we call the immersion strategy in communities to help really get things change done in a community. And we're talking about health and nutrition and fitness in this arena. We are working with the whole aspects of the community, the insurers, the providers, the food suppliers, the community organizations. We're working with all of them and giving them a free tool that will help individuals and families, plan their meals toward their nutrition goals and all of that. But we're doing it everywhere. Mm-hmm. So if you go to your grocery store, you're getting the message. If you go to your health provider, you're getting the message. If you're going to the insurer, you're getting the message. In other words, the same message from the whole community complex. Got me? Yep. And that we have seen to really does make a change in behavior.
That's that.
So I just throw that out.
Yeah, I love it. You know, that was a model that I actually learned about, I guess when I was at the Alliance for a Healthier Generation.
Right.
And we worked with the Clinton Foundation, and they would go into a community, get all the people that were part of a systems change issue or event or something, and have a 3 to 5 year plan and deliverables of who was going to do what and when, and metrics of success,
Right.
and a longitudinal study to go along with it. And I thought the model was brilliant, expensive, but brilliant. And so I love the fact that I'm hearing, you know, your organization focusing on that, especially around something so important like nutrition education for people and their families and kids. That's awesome.
And the key is continuity too. So much of this is grants that are shot in the arms that people run to find the money and do a little thing for a short period of time, but they don't create the continuity of leadership in the community. And then it's lost if you don't do that. You got to build up the leadership of the community. It's not, we're here to help you, and you help them for 1 year and then, well, the grant's over.
Yeah.
That it isn't like that. So I'll stop there, and because I think Tamara's ready to say something.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Gary. I came on camera. I didn't come off mute, but appreciate hearing about your successes across the community. That does sound really smart and impactful. Hi, Dianna. Nice to see you. Nice to be here. Sorry, I was a little late, so apologies if I missed this part, but on your 5 tips, I really, the innovation and the percentage of funding for, like, we would love to do that. We've talked before about, do you have a big ideas fund, and how do you dedicate a component off of this? Do you have, the visionary fund? What do you call it so that people can get excited about it? How do you start it though? Do you start it with your first grant? Like building that into the budget when you already might have overhead or other things that look scary to funders?
Yeah, so 2 ways that I've seen, and again, it was pre-COVID philanthropy. So pre-COVID philanthropy is a different ballgame altogether, but I'll speak about that because we still have funders who are in that mindset and have not shifted out to the new mindset. Old mindset means that you have to have thought leadership. They have to know your strategic plan. They have to know your bigger visions, all the different steps in order to equal the trust factor of the 10, 20% set aside. And you have to be dripping those conversations every time you talk to them about innovation, 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 and almost putting it back to them. If you didn't innovate in 12 to 24 months, where would you be? You'd probably be out of a job. Your organization would probably not succeed as a company, but yet you want us to hold fast to that. So how do we develop a trusting relationship in order for you to say, okay, yeah, let's give that a try. Let's just do 10%. Now, with the mindset shift and talking to funders, and mind you, I'm definitely talking to some of the bigger players, Bank of America's, PayPal, JP Morgan, Raymond James, folks that are having that shift. They get it. And they're like, boy, we should have been doing this all along. Oh my God, Dianna, you're right. You've been asking us for this for years. I'm like, yeah. So, but how they do it is still, there isn't as much meat on the bones in some of these partners because they're still so new to it. They're in 6 to 8 months of saying, okay, yeah, here's some looser strings on this part of it. We know that you know how to do this best, but those partnerships are the ones that are your long-term partners that now you're going back to say, hey, we have some innovation in the marketplace to solve, Alzheimer's. We have this research that has come out. We have this new drug that we're backing. We have partnerships in community that are. This is huge. Social isolation and the multifactorial issues caused by COVID has put this in a position where now we need to leap. And one of the side effects of COVID is mental drain and mental fog. We don't know the studies on that yet, but oh my God, what if COVID is causing some earlier symptoms of, mental challenges that are associated with dementia and Alzheimer's? So how are you, again, taking this road and ride of COVID philanthropy and making it so that they're like, yes, let's think through. Yes, let's think differently, and having them support you on your journey. My 10 cents.
Thank you. Yeah, right. And again, these are for the 7-figure funders, right? Like having this conversation with a $25,000 funder buying a ticket for your gala.
Nope, it's not for them. But you do want to invite them to your CEO roundtables. You want them to know, because sometimes they're just funding you at that amount, yet they're funding somebody else at $500,000. Why?
Right.
And asking those questions. Why? Doing those partner audits with them. Understanding where they are, where they're not is really key as well, because you could grow them. But yes, generally right now it is for your high 6-7-figure funders.
Thank you. It's helpful to shape how to think about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Other questions?
I'll just make a comment in the vamp here while people are thinking. My wife works for the American Society of Addiction Medicine, and you talk about the mental issues. There's been a 30% increase in addiction and drug use and all of that during the COVID lockdown. In fact, they have data that shows that probably as many people have died from the lockdown as died from the disease. And because of being cut off from their doctors, they're not following things and all that. It's just been horrific. And so so that's something to keep in mind. And so there has been a real erosion, really, of the capacity of the human population. And I like to call everyone human beings. In this COVID situation with the lockdown, it's really reduced capacity, and people are really disoriented between the COVID and between the world situation right now. People are just not focused whatsoever, and they're just kind of lost in a fog and worried and all that. And so I just say you're right on in terms of the mental issues, and it's going to be with us for a long time, unfortunately.
And we haven't seen, and we don't even know yet, all of the health disparities and issues related to what COVID will and is impacting on our societies, our families, on mental health, emotions, drugs.
Huge.
It's so multifactorial. I mean, you just take isolation alone and all the multifactorial issues of just isolation. And then you have fear, and you have social justice issues. You have humanity issues, you have all these things, and the stress factors and what is really imprinting on us and imprinting on generations. We have no idea. So I'm really encouraging the folks that are in the health and wellness space and in also financial education space to start thinking and planning for the opportunities that could exist to engage people differently. Sarah, hi.
Sarah's ready to say something profound, I think.
This is Sarah. You need to come off mute, Sarah. There you go.
I'm just nodding along with you. I'm not sure. I guess I wanted to ask you, I loved what you said about changing the business model from a transactional model of donor to grantee to the partnership model. And we'll be hosting a group of 15 Midwestern foundation leaders. And one thing that seems to be burning on their minds is, when to take up the bully pulpit to really talk about equity and inclusion in grant making. And then the point is to pass the microphone to community leaders and let them be the advocates and give them the space. So I wonder, what have you been hearing? What is this kind of sharing of power? Where are we in that effort right now?
Yeah, the whole passing the baton, passing the bully pulpit to somebody else, that's nice. And it's good for organizations and foundations to lift up what the community is saying. But this really speaks to grantees not investing their mindset and their expertise, their knowledge and research and trends to also be with them, to also stay on the same platform of hey, this is what diversity, equity, and inclusion could look like in our grant making. What do you think? You know, it's a mutual conversation. And I'm still hearing like, oh, well, we're going to just ask them. And I'm like, well, what do you think? What do you think it should be? You have all the money for the marketing and the trends and the research. They have this much money, you have this. So how about you help them with research and you help them think through what it could be and you co-develop it together. So I'm pushing more for the co-development because that's when you actually hear and everybody is expectations and everybody's shaking their head because what it'll be is more of the same. We're listening to our community partners and they're telling us what they want to need and they're telling us what to do. Yeah, that's been happening for 100, 200,000 years. Now you all need to come up and say, okay, let us help you with this.
Right. And that's going to need to happen because I just learned from IRS that 153,000 nonprofits have ceased to exist and will never be coming back in the 1 year of the COVID. Another 197,000 nonprofits, unfortunately, because of this distraction and everything, have lost their 501c3 status or their 501c4 status, or they've literally, their boards have disintegrated, a lot of other things have, and so they're trying to build back. They're not dead yet, but they're trying to build back. And so you think about the impact on community with all these entities lost. So we're going to have to do what you're talking about, and to bring all that together, to bring everybody together again and knit this back, the fabric of the community back together.
Absolutely. You know, I mentioned that early in the presentation that it's really just hurt my heart about all the nonprofits that have gone out of business. And because those were what I call the impact gap fillers.
Exactly.
Those are the ones we actually need and needed during this challenging time, and they're out of business. And then you have 100,000 more that are teetering, and then you have more in queue. I mean, there's so much change going on, which is why I'm like, hey, hand raised. We need to save this relationship so that we can make sure that we have impact partners and communities to do the work.
Correct.
So I am challenged and saddened, very sad, you know, as far as the ones that I'm hearing about, the ones that I've supported or served as an advisor. And I'm like, oh, they couldn't pivot. And they lost funding because they were, you know, most of their funds came from XYZ. They didn't have diversification of income. And I'm like, oh, you need to diversify. So,
well, anybody with event-based funding
absolutely.
is gone.
Absolutely.
Because you couldn't have events. And so boom, that speaks to diversity of your funding sources and your strategy. So, you know, things like that have to be thought about. So I think the points you made overall are fantastic. I mean, that's what the way people need to start thinking. And I'm hopeful that this will catch on because that's the only way we're going to knit the fabric together.
You're right about that. So thank you. And thanks for those that have shared and asked questions. I know we're at time. I will be recording this and putting it on YouTube, and I'll share it with you so you can share it with some of your colleagues. Again, this is all about lifting all boats here and sharing content and that paradigm mindset shift that needs to happen as this new philanthropic era is here. And I swear, I hope it stays. I really do, because it is so unique and so cool and scary all at the same time, because a lot cannot shift. And how do we help organizations shift? So thank you. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for this moment. And we'll be talking soon. Happy summer, everybody.
Good job.
Thank you, Diana.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Diana. Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you, Hillary. Thank you, Gary.